So good afternoon. We'll start with the webinar. Thank you for attending. Should you have any question at any time, use the question tool here, the chat, to raise your question, and we will answer after the presentation. So I am Philippe Desfrères, responsible of Modelio, and I will shortly present the latest version. Then Tony Marchand, consultant and pre-sales manager, will run a demo. So this webinar is about Modelio new feature, and Modelio has been succeeded to object hearing, which was created in 1990. And since 2009, Modelio exists on the market. And I will just recall a few evolution since Modelio 3.0 and to remind you which evolution have already happened. So Modelio 3.0 was a major version, and since then there has been at least one major version per year. So for example, Modelio 3.1 has introduced matrices so that you can access to models through diagrams, but also through matrices, which is a very convenient tool, for example, to show traceability between elements. Modelio 3.2 has introduced constellation. Constellation allow to have a distributed repository for federated organization. There can be many repositories around the world, and users can see a consistent model which navigates through all those repositories. Constellation is a tool to share, to administrate the Modelio configuration for all users and from a web browser. So Modelio 3.4 has introduced Modelio Studio, which is a graphical tool to customize and adapt Modelio for specific models or specific usage. And a very large part of the customization can be done through this graphical tool without any programming. So Modelio 3.6 has introduced Archimate support. Archimate is an open group standard. It's a modeling language for enterprise architecture, and Modelio has been one of the very first tools to be certified by the open group as a tool supporting Archimate. And this adds another modeling language to Modelio, which has the great interest to support different modeling languages, such as UML, BPMN, Archimate, and others. 3.6 has also introduced impact analysis. There is a tool dedicated to impact analysis within Modelio, which is very important for large projects. As you know, Modelio has a very strong feature for document generation, and Modelio 3.7 has introduced a document view, which shows per model element all parts related to documentation, descriptions, attached documentation, diagrams where the element appears, and so on. So let's go to the latest version, Modelio 3.8. And one of the new features of Modelio 3.8 is ergonomics. There are new icons, bigger, more visible, and more illustrative of concepts. There is a new project workspace where you can better organize local projects and projects shared with other partners through Constellation. There is the new notion of methodological links, which support links between different modeling languages, such as between Archimate and BPMN, or between BPMN and UML, or between Archimate and UML. And as those links between different standards are not defined by the standard organizations themselves, we provide means to support those links within Modelio, but those links depend on the methodology and the approach that we have, so that anybody can define those methodological links. BPM has been enhanced with an enhanced methodological support, so for business process modeling. In particular, there are links defined between Archimate and BPMN, so that there is a smooth connection between enterprise architecture modeling and business process modeling. So when you drag and drop elements from one world to the others, links are created and the consistency is managed. There is a workflow support, very important for teamwork, which supports the life cycle of modeling elements. For example, a model element can be in a draft state, and then it can be validated by someone in the team, and this life cycle is supported by Modelio, and this life cycle can also be adapted by customizing the tool. The document publisher has new evolutions. One of them is that Modelio support generates PowerPoint documents. It's very useful, for example, if you want to discuss a model with other people and to show PowerPoint slides about the model. This can be generated by Modelio. And in addition, there is an evolution of the template editor that defines which kind of document is to be generated. And there is new features and more intuitive ergonomics for the template editor. So I will let Tony show a demo of Modelio 3.8 so that you realize what is new here.
Okay. Modelio 3.8 introduces the ability to structure projects and to store them in directories. For example, for the discount travel for Archimate project, I create a folder, project in progress, for example. Now that the directory exists, I can store other projects by moving them in this folder. I can create other directories. Version 1, version 2, and I can move project in this directory. In this workspace, I can visualize project share on the Constellation server and local projects. I see local project and share project. The project in gray represents the project I can connect to, and the project discount travel for Archimate is the project I'm already connected to and I can open. So to avoid re-entering credential every time I want to connect to a Constellation server, I can set this configuration by clicking on the last button. I enter a name. The server URL. My login and my password. Okay, I check the connection and I click on the OK button to see all projects defined in this Constellation server. So now I can open the project with the join project command. Okay. You will also see that all the icons have been reviewed. They are larger and therefore more readable on high definition screens. Until now, if you wanted to connect two elements defined in different notation, the only solution was to create a dependency link, possibly by applying a stereotype to this dependency. So Modelio 3.8 provides methodological links. So I open a BPMN diagram. So for example, just drag and drop a business actor into a BPMN diagram. I can choose an Archimate actor. So Modelio creates a lane linked to the actor. You can see these links in the links editor. So you can see the lane and the link towards the Archimate actor. Drag and drop a business object into the lane, and Modelio creates a data object. This data object is linked to the business object. So drag and drop a state into the data object, and Modelio replaces the previous version of the data object with the class containing the state I dragged and dropped. So you can see this class order, the life cycle with states, and I can drag and drop the states into the data object I want to replace, and you can see the data object is linked to the class and to the state. So you have a dedicated view for methodological links. Select an element, for example, this data object. You see all the available methodological links, represents, state links, and allocated. So allocated is a new link, and this is a link towards KPI. If you want to connect an element, a process, a task, or a data object with a KPI, select the element in the diagram and click on the field. Modelio opens a dialog box for you to select the KPI you want to connect to. Click on the OK button. You can unmask these links in the diagram. To obtain information about methodological links, you can create a matrix. So you can see links between BPMN elements, Archimate elements, or UML elements. You can focus on a link, choose a link in the drop-down list, process actor, for example. You can see process actor links between lanes and Archimate actor. You can choose state link, for example, and you see links between data object and states. So if you want more details on the definition of new methodological links, a video was made by our support team that shows how to define them with Modelio Studio. It allows you to define new methodological links by defining the name of the link and its origin and target. So you can define one or more workflows. The definition is done in Modelio using a state transition model. Here's an example. So an element will be described, for example, a business process, a requirement, or an Archimate element. People who have to document it will put it in the writing in progress state. When the writing is finished, it will be put in the ready to review state. In this case, the relevant reviewers will be notified for this review. After review, reviewers can put the element in the final state corresponding to the publication, or in the to be edited state if the element will have modifications. After defining the workflow, it can be applied and required on your project. So we will see how to configure this workflow for users after covering its use. Okay. So the workflow tab is used to visualize the state history. So for this requirement, you can see different states. You know who has changed the state, when was the change made, and the tab also lets you change the state. So if I want to change this requirement state, I visualize the current state, for example, ready to review, and the list of possible states. So this suggested list of states corresponds to the possible states after the current state defined in the state machine. So I visualize the description of the transition, of each transition, and I can write a comment for people who will have to validate my modification. So an overview matrix is available, and you can see the state of all elements. So you can see requirements and states for each requirement. You can visualize a real-time report of the workflow. So with this report, you can you know the state of each requirement, the last comment, the last date, and the last author for this for each requirement. So you have Workflow Explorer. So you can see all states defining my workflow, and for each state you can see requirements. So for each requirement you can change the state in the validation process, and you can see the history of all modifications realized on each element. So a documentation can be produced to obtain information related to the workflow. Okay, select the workflow. You can modify properties, and you can generate the documentation. So you have an overview of the workflow with the state machine, with the description of each state defined in the workflow. You have information of all states and all elements for each state, with the last test transition, the date, the author, and the comment. You have information of all elements with the current state and the last transition. You have the history of each element. And you have different metrics, information, for example, the number of elements submitted to the workflow, or the number of potential elements with the ratio. So by default, not all elements are included in the workflow. Elements can be added to the workflow, allowing status change and to user notification. So if you want to add an element in the workflow, select the element and run the add to workflow command. So you select the workflow and you can add a comment. So communication to other contributors of the workflow is very important. That's why everything is configurable to let you notify the different contributors based on their role. This notification is done by email as soon as the user publishes modifications. So this configuration is defined in the Constellation server interface. So I select the project, this controller for Archimate. So on this project, different user profiles exist: manager, guest, business expert, architect, urbanist. So the workflow is based on this profile. So for each transition, you can set if users defining this profile can be change state or not. So for example, you can see that manager can change all states, and guest cannot modify and change no states. You can see that for each transition, you can define if all project members are notified, or just project administrator, or just users concerned by next step. So here's an example of a received email. So you have an information of the different state modification. So Document Publisher now provides a feature to generate PowerPoint presentation. It works just like Word or HTML document generation. So this example shows the generation of diagrams, one for each slide. So this example shows the generation of diagrams, one for each slide. The description of each element shown on this slide are generated in comments. So we will create a template to show you what's new. So this is the template editor. Two nodes are possible, a node for presentation definition and a node for document definition. So for document definition, you can define if you want to generate for Microsoft Word, HTML, or OpenOffice. If you want to create a node for PowerPoint, so create a presentation node. In this node, you can create a production node for generate a slide. So a slide has a layout. Choose the layout you want, title only, title and subtitle, or title and content. And now, if you want to define which elements will be generated in each part, you can create zone nodes, and you can define the title of the slide, the content of the slide, and the comment of the slide. So, for example, for title, create a paragraph. This is the production node, and you have the name defined in this paragraph. For content, you can create a navigation node to retrieve the diagram and a production node to generate the diagram. For comments, choose the new production node to generate description node, and choose the node to produce and its paragraph style. With Modelio 3.7, you have to create a navigation node to retrieve the note and a production node to produce a paragraph and to generate the content of the node. So two nodes are now merged into one node. So you have a new node to generate icons. If you want to generate icons with the meta class or with the stereotype, or you can define a custom icon by choosing a file in your file system. And to conclude, another new node is added in the template editor version, MDA property. This node is used to produce a dedicated property or tag value from a model element. Choose the stereotype and the property you want to produce.
So after we have seen this demo, a few words about the roadmap in 2019. One is that we will launch very soon GDPR support. That is, you can model GDPR using Modelio. It's a dedicated model to GDPR, which is a customization of Archimate. And so from an enterprise architecture model, you can derive a GDPR model, or from a GDPR model, you can derive an enterprise architecture. This tool is coupled with the privacy toolchain, so that, for example, from registers that you have defined, it could be in Excel form, they can be imported within the privacy toolchain, and this can be imported within the GDPR modeling feature, so that you get the model from your GDPR work, and then you can relate this to your enterprise architecture. And so the privacy tool environment is larger than just a modeling feature. It provides features to support the DPO and also the consent support within GDPR. By June, we will launch Modelio SaaS support, so that you can get Modelio by SaaS. We will host the data and the configuration of Modelio. The customer will have the administration tool, and we will provide dedicated support for customers here. So there will be still Modelio on-premise, the tool that you already like, but there will be this option on a SaaS support. And so Modelio has this feature to be flexible like the web. That is, the repository can be anywhere on the web. It can be distributed into several repositories, and you can browse through the repositories using Modelio. And Modelio is like an app. In the SaaS mode, you will a newcomer will just log in and download Modelio, which will run on the platform and access to the entire model. So this SaaS support will be available quite soon, by June. You can contact us at info@modeliosoft.com or sales@modeliosoft.com, and we'll be glad to provide you answers.